So a really savvy arts administrator will take nothing for granted. Find out if it's true. An example, I actually was the VP of Marketing and Communications for the Los Angeles Philharmonic through the opening of Walt Disney Concert Hall. I started working there in 2000, and the hall opened in 2003. And I think a lot of people forget that the Los Angeles Philharmonic in the year 2000 could barely sell a half a house. No one was attending concerts, sales were slipping, no one was interested. And you think about it now, believe it or not, in those days we were really worried that we were going to build this beautiful concert hall and no one was going to come to a concert. They were just going to come look at the building and go away. So the myth in the organization was that the reason people weren't buying tickets is because, they didn't like contemporary music and they couldn't warm up to Esa-Pekka Salonen. And, if we just built a campaign around, why contemporary music really mattered, it could help us. Well, interestingly, we started doing some focus groups and we started doing some questionnaires and some surveys, and we found out, in fact, everybody loved Esa-Pekka Salonen who was going. But most of the people who weren't attending described going to the Philharmonic as, it's stuffy, it's boring, it's not for me, it's something old people do, only old people go to classical concerts. So based with the truth, the kind of campaign that we embarked on was quite a bit different. And I don't know if any of you were living in Los Angeles in 2001, but we actually started a campaign showing pictures of dogs with their heads out of car windows, talking about fill your spirit or fill your soul. Pictures of women twirling on the beach, just to give people the idea of it's what the music makes you feel like. It's not actually what your misperception is. And it worked, because ticket sales began to actually increase before we moved into the hall, and I think our goal was to align this new cutting-edge, beautiful hall with the orchestra so that by the time we moved in, the two would come together and people would be coming to that hall actually to hear the music. I think another good example of myth and reality, how many people here have ever been to the Hollywood Bowl? Okay. So the Hollywood Bowl has 18,000 seats. The Hollywood Bowl has about 4,000 parking spaces. So everybody knows parking at the Hollywood Bowl is a complete nightmare. At the time, we were seeing some signs of customer dissatisfaction. And the myth was, well, it's the parking. Everybody hates the parking. If we could just do something about the parking, everybody would be happy. So we said, well, let's find out, because everybody's saying that, but what if that's not true and we build a 7-story parking garage and it didn't really matter? So after we did our customer satisfaction research, what we found out was nobody was upset about the parking at all. Everybody knew the parking was terrible. They had planned for it in advance. We had talked about it so much. What was making our customers unhappy? Anybody want to guess? Well, at that time, what was making them unhappy was how long they had to wait on the phone. That was the number one thing that was driving customer dissatisfaction. So what we learned was we needed to invest in a better call center, a new phone system, a way to make sure that no one had to wait on hold for more than 2 minutes in order to drive our customer satisfaction scores up. So these are examples of when you get into your arts organization and you're doing your job and you hear people saying things, step back and say, is that really true? Because we could embark upon a whole campaign. It's not going to help things because we're basing it on something that is based not in reality. I'll give you one more example, the Autry. There are a lot of myths at the Autry. It sort of makes sense for that. And one of the biggest myths was our entire database, all our supporters are cowboy lovers or fans of Gene Autry. So once again, I thought, well, I don't know. I have no idea if that's true or not. So a very simple database analysis, doesn't cost very much, software that can go through your database and tell you all kinds of things about your customers. And some surveys revealed a couple of surprising things. One was at least 48% of the people in our database actually self-described as museum goers. They really weren't particularly interested in cowboys or history or America or the American West at all. They were people who liked to go to museums. They, in fact, a high percentage were members of LACMA. So now we're starting to say, well, you know, we had this idea about why people came here, what was of interest, and how to reach them, and half of it was wrong. The other fact, and I still can't figure this one out, but I've double-checked it. Over 78% of the people in our database showed no evidence of children in the home and no grandchildren. So it beats me why, for some reason, people who like to go to Western museums don't seem to procreate. I don't know why. But that had pretty big implications because every year we have a wonderful summer camp at the Autry, and we think of ourselves as a pretty family-friendly place. We have about 50,000 school kids who come through our doors every year through the LAUSD. And we think, well, this is obviously families are coming here all the time. We're for families. So when our education director started talking about doing our annual mailing for our summer camp, great place for kids to come in the summer, lots of wonderful programs for kids under 9, I said, well, who are you mailing the brochure to? Who was he going to mail a brochure to? Our mailing list. And I said, but nobody on our mailing list has any kids. So by working actually with another mailing list, I'm happy to say it was actually the 4th Theater who was happy to share their list with us. We got an astounding, a wonderful response rate, and enrollment in summer camp went way up. So these are just ways of saying keep searching for the truth. Don't take anything for granted. It's going to make you look like a real superstar in your organization. You'll actually find success will come a little easier. And when these surprising things come out, it gives you some new creative ideas about ways to do things. It's getting easier and easier to get information. SurveyMonkey, Zoomerang only costs about $300 a month. You can do as many online surveys as you want. And actually, for most arts organizations who have Facebook comments coming up or comments on Yelp, if you pay attention to those, if you read those and really sort of think about what people are saying, you're getting free research information every day. Every day you allow your customers to comment on something that you're doing. Okay, so now you're the arts administrator who comprehends and can articulate why your arts organization matters, what you stand for. You know what is true and what is the myth, and you're basing your marketing and fundraising strategies on all these fundamental truths. There's sort of one last behavior that actually has the potential to make a big difference, and that is be fearless. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try things new. One of the reasons I think we all wanted to go into the arts was to be creative. And it always astounds me that arts organizations whose whole product is based on the idea of creativity, for the most cases, have the most uncreative and traditional sorts of communication materials. You know, you have a performing arts series, and it says, you know, the concert starts at 8, and this is the person who's performing, and here's their program. You think there's probably another way to get people excited about what you're doing and why they want to participate. I mean, what if you did have a series of billboards of pictures with dogs sticking their heads out of car windows? You know, and it's become such a cliche now. Actually, there's even a political ad with this line, but it is worth repeating. As they say, the definition of insanity is repeating the same action over and over and expecting a different result. So the idea is, yes, every year we mail our brochure to our mailing list. Well, okay, then every year you're going to get the exact same result, basically. So I've really thought about why is it that arts organizations tend to be so conservative in their approaches to marketing and communication. And actually, I think it has to do with fear. We have so little money. I only have $5,000. What if something goes wrong and I've spent my $5,000 and nobody comes to the concert? And I think I have to have faith in the product itself, because your product has value. People do value the arts. But I don't think we're actually as courageous in reaching out to them and talking to people the way that they need to be talked to today. So it's really about stepping outside your safety zone a little bit. For the sake of your career, it's probably a good idea to test some of these ideas, which is what all good marketers certainly would do, but test them. You know, create an alternative message, create an alternative brochure, create an alternative ad, see which gives a better response. And then you can start to roll out some of these more creative ideas. So I'm sort of bringing this back to, so does branding still matter? And I have to say yes, because now, if we sort of follow these steps, you have a brand that you can build upon, and your brand's going to emerge out of this. Now you're the amazing arts professional who has the courage to actually talk about it in a creative way. You know what the truth is, what the perceptions and misperceptions are of your organization, and I think you're really bound to succeed.